and also the excellent singing by Majma. It's difficult to sort of speak at the same pitch and bring the same momentum back. But I will try and answer some of the questions that were raised in the first session, and also sort of meet the mandate which Shipra has assigned us. When we talk of Gujarat today in the current context, I think there are three issues that I would like to draw your attention to. One, what is the governance model of Gujarat? Or what is the essence of this governance model of Gujarat? What are its core elements? How the development outcomes which are being portrayed in the media, discussed all over, how they are linked with the essence of this governance model, and what are the implications? What are the implications for us in order to understand Gujarat, in order to understand whether if it's implemented in India, what are the implications for us? And to begin with, let me say that the discussion that we had in the first round on 2002, and the discussion probably that we're going to have in this session on looking at the development experience in Gujarat, have a very strong linkage of what was done in 2002 or before that, and how the momentum has been built, what kind of an institutional framework has been put in place. All of that has much to do with the kind of development outcomes that we are experiencing. And secondly, the falsification of facts as the mainstream media is doing, the fault lines of caste and communal divide, of the Gujarati pride that we are experiencing or we are being told about, are all linked together if we want to understand Gujarat and if we want to decide something about how do we want, what kind of India we want to build, especially after the 2014 elections. I think we need to look at all of these in some interconnected way. Now, when we talk about the governance model of Gujarat, clearly this model of Gujarat, which has been sort of built slowly, but the essence is now very clear in front of us and to this audience well known, is not a model which is based on the Gandhian notion of trusteeship, for which we think Gujarat was known, or for the other thing, the cooperative movement and what was done, in Gujarat in terms of the milk cooperative movement. None of this informs the institutional framework that has been put in place in the last few years. What has been put in place, this audience knows very well, is a framework, is an institutional framework, which is not really market-led, but which is working on behalf of the private investor, the big corporates, who are actually not only sort of gaining from it, but who are also deciding the priorities of development. So it's really a shift in terms of the institutional arrangements that have been made in the way Gujarat is being governed in the last few years. And the other element of this institutional framework is that not only it is working on behalf of the private investor, to which some of us may say that we don't disagree, but really the point is that the public exchequer, the state resources, the resources of the people are being used in order to profit the private. And that's really the point. So at the cost of meeting the social obligations, the obligations of health and education, to say the least, by the state, those social obligations are not being met, and the state exchequer, state resources, state's money is being used to the advantage of the private sector, for private profit, if one were to put it. And therefore, the discontent that it produces demands, requires that the fault lines or the falsehood of inclusiveness, the identity of caste, the identity of religion, the identity of national pride, all of that is used to justify, to rationalize, to deal with the dissent, the challenges that you experience as you govern through such a framework. Now, if you look at the elements of this framework, there are numerous examples. We have written about it, of how we are saying that this governance model has these 2 or 3 elements, how it works for the big private sector, how state exchequer has been used in order to facilitate their profits, and how social obligations have not been met. If we look at all these 3 elements, there are numerous examples that can be shared with you, that can be established or available all around. On investment, it's very clear of what has happened. The investment boom is being projected to us as a success story for Gujarat. It's interesting that the Gujarat's governance model in the mainstream media, or all around us rather, it's being told it's a model in which decisions are taken. And it is put forth in comparison to the national governance framework, where it is said that the decisions are not taken. So what kind of decisions have been taken in Gujarat and what they have led to? So that will bring me to my second point of what kind of of development outcomes this decision-making has done. So on investment, it's very clear that this investment, one, that the sheen of this investment boom is going. There is already a decline. It's not sustainable. We provide the data in terms of how the amount that is promised and how that amount that is implemented. That ratio is steadily coming down to the extent that, if you start from 2001 to 2011, the numbers have come down very fast. Something like 73% of 100 rupees that were promised were invested in, say, 2003. Now 11 rupees are being invested. So already this, the amount that is being invested and what is being promised, there is a mismatch between that. This investment has not created employment, and I'll come to employment a little later. But what I'm suggesting from this is that the investment boom in Gujarat is not really the result of some very efficient administrative arrangements. It's rather certain kinds of institutional changes which brings investor or which attracts investors to Gujarat. Let me give you one example. You'll be surprised to know that Gujarat has had the highest numbers of strikes and lockouts. And I don't say it, by the way, all the facts that I'm saying are based on public sources. So none of them are private facts. Gujarat has, in 2011, Gujarat had the highest number of strikes and lockouts in the country. Economic Survey, Government of India says it, yet Gujarat had the highest number of investors running towards Gujarat. So there is something in the governance of Gujarat which convinces the private investor that irrespective of the social conflict, irrespective of the conflict with labor, I am secure because the government will stand with me and with nobody else. And it is this guarantee that it will stand with the private investor that makes the difference for investor to run there. It's not about single window clearances. In fact, it's not single window, it's single man, single person, or whatever that clearance is. But essentially, it's not because of that. Other states are more than willing to do that. But the investors don't run at the same speed. And the image that the government has created, that it is decisive, that it is in a position to take that decision, is very closely connected to what has been built in 2002. Since there are only 2 minutes, we're just starting. So what I will do is I'll give you some interesting facts on one of the slogans of the current campaign is "Bahut hua nari pe waar," and then there is. So I looked at some of the numbers on violence based on the national crime record for 2012, and I want to share them because I found them to be really disturbing. On dowry deaths, Gujarat's conviction rate is nearly zero, lowest in the country. The national average is 31.9. Assault on women with intent to outrage her modesty, conviction rate is 1.6, lowest in the country. National average is 23.5. Rape conviction rate in Gujarat 15.3, ranks 20th in 28 states. Kidnapping, abduction, and I can go on and on. Insult to what is called as modesty of women, conviction rate in Gujarat 20, it ranks 70 amongst 23 states. So it's not really about bahut hua nari pe waar, ab ki baar nahi, but kabhi bhi Modi sarkar nahi. Because essentially you pick up numbers in health, you pick up numbers in education, infant mortality rate, mortality rates under 5, look at morbidity rates. Unfortunately, in spite of best efforts of Gujarat to sort of present itself as a state which is doing well on nutrition, irrespective of the fashion-conscious women of Gujarat who eat less, as we are told, the undernutrition of children in Gujarat is one of the worst in the country. And I don't think children are really into, diet control or whatever you want to call it. So, neither are women, absolutely. So if you look at the elements of these governance models, they definitely don't have people's face or a face of the marginalized and the vulnerable in front of them. In fact, my argument really is that even if you are not pro-poor, if you are not pro-vulnerable, but you are only bothered about this aspiring India, the middle-class youth who wants to build a great future, the Gujarat model has nothing which inspires a future even for them. So even if you are looking for good life for yourself, really this growth model is not sustainable. It's really something which is at the cost of women. Employment numbers are shocking in Gujarat if you look at what has happened. Just to give you an example, self-employment continues to be the major chunk in employment. And you know what is the major, what is the kind of jobs that it has created? It's what is called in this category as unpaid family labor. Something like 46% of the 2011-12 numbers in Gujarat says it's unpaid family labor. And what is it in terms of, you know, small grocery shops, as garment workers and so on. So this growth really doesn't